Yeah, we're just gonna go at it, make a mess, destroy some shit.
Stop!
There were some questionable decisions made along the way. We're going to tackle the trees and trying to get the trees down around the perimeter. Hello friends, and welcome back to my charming yet decrepit 120-year-old Victorian duplex here in Nova Scotia. I bought this beauty sight unseen last summer and I've been trying to save and restore her ever since. I'm Shannon Makes, hopeless old house romantic by day, circus artist by night. And if this is your first time here, welcome! If you're into old houses, hard labor, and cute dogs, I've got a whole playlist of previous house episodes you can catch up on. I'll be sure to link it at the end of the video. And if you're a repeat customer, then you're gonna love what this week's got in store for you. And me. So our foundation guy is coming tomorrow to take a look at the whole foundation of the house. So today is kind of the big push to try and clear out the basement before he comes so that he can actually walk around the basement and see all the parts of the foundation, which at the moment, no one can. So, hence, basement cleanup time. Also, I should clarify that I'm talking mainly only about one half of the basement. The other half is looking pretty good. It's mostly cleared out. It's just got a really old fridge and a bunch of sludgy dirt that needs to be cleared out, but it's the other half that, one, is missing power, so we haven't had any lights. It's also the half that is significantly more flooded, so everything is just wet and covered in this disgusting sludge that still has a lot of work needed to do. Really, really gross, dirty, slimy work. And so we continue to pull stuff out of the basement. Things that maybe a year ago, if I'd had found it on the street, I'd have been tempted to save and turn into some sort of project. But I just absolutely don't have the time or resources at the moment to take any of that on. I have an entire house that is threatening to succumb to rain and mold and that needs a whole new heating system. The one thing that I was absolutely adamant about saving though was any old woodwork that I found. And trust me, there was a surprising amount of it in the basement. I can't tell off the bat what was original to the house and what might have been added to the collection later on, but wood is wood, and unless it was literally covered in slime and mold, I set it aside for future restoration. Everything else got broken down into small pieces to save space in our rapidly filling dumpster, and also got sorted into various categories like metal, household waste, construction material, etc. It breaks my heart to see all these perfectly good objects just covered in mold and gross, disgusting slime, and the urge to save everything was real, but keeping the scope of the project in mind was absolutely essential to making some actual progress. So we did not entirely finish the basement. Who am I kidding? We didn't even come close to finishing the basement because it is the basement that never ends. But we did make some progress on it. However, we decided that actually we have a little change in plans because the plumber actually can come tomorrow to do some work. So that's gonna mean we have got some stuff to do before he gets here.
We need to expose the old plumbing so we can make new plumbing. At least to connect the temporary bathroom so we can shower, finally. having a shower. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Because yes, we're on, what, episode 4? Roughly a week into a midsummer renovation process, and we still don't have a shower. So what have we been doing instead? Well, it's been a mixture of beach showers, sink showers, and sometimes schlepping over to our realtor's house to use his shower, which, you know, it makes for a good story years down the road, but we were also just really excited to be able to take a normal shower in our own house. Is that absolutely essential? No, as several of you have pointed out, it is possible to survive without hot showers. It's great that that's not a priority for you, but it was for us, especially since it was honestly going to be fairly cheap and easy to achieve. So we're going to try and take a look and see what's inside the soffit, because that's where all the pipes are running, and we don't need a soffit, it's just taking up a lot of room for nothing. So we're going to go tear it down, see what is behind there, and hopefully make tomorrow's job easier with the plumber.
And all the water is off, so even if we cut a pipe, nobody cares.
Well, I mean... So pipes and really cool old wallpaper, which...
Bit of wiring.
Bit of wiring. Wiring for what? The light for the bathroom, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
Can we talk about how huge that soffit is for how absolutely little is passing through it? It's ridiculous.
This is our current water line, emergency water line.
Do we remember why they're emergency lines? Because we have a lovely leak. No, that was somehow not an emergency. No, they're emergency lines because when I bought the house, all the water lines were busted because the pipes had froze the previous winter when the house ran out of oil. That led to all the radiators exploding, and most of the plumbing in the house was either confirmed to be no good or was possibly good but not really worth taking the risk on. We don't really need leaky plumbing and water damages to add to our list of woes. See last week's video for the current top 10 list of our old house woes. So we knew that we'd be driving out from Montreal to live straight away in this house that we'd never visited, never even seen in person, had no functioning water, like the city had shut off the water main to the house, and we couldn't really afford to take an Airbnb while renovating. That definitely was not in the budget. So instead, I hired a plumber to come out to the house prior to us moving in, just to connect the toilet and the cold water to the bathroom sink, so, you know, we could at least stay in the house as we worked on it. These temporary water lines are not elegant, they're not in their final position, and honestly, they're not even very well done, but they got us some short-term water to the most basic services, so we could at least, you know, jump right into the renovations when we arrived.
This is the hot water emergency water line that we're gonna use, that we're gonna hook up downstairs. And these are probably the cables for the outlets and the switches and
But that's it.
The electricity for this room.
But that's it, that's all that's in there.
Yeah, it could be this big.
Okay, let's go see what's going on behind the kitchen soffit.
There's one cable.
Wow.
Come see. The entire box here has nothing in it.
What is even the point? Did they think it was aesthetic?
Maybe. Maybe.
Well, soffits for shits?
Soffit for shits.
Seriously?
No. Cable, I wanna say.
A single solitary cable.
And what looks like plumbing.
So what's it look like?
So there is electricity that comes from all the way back there for what used to be the outside porch light.
Okay.
Probably that switch here. And there's also water that arrives from this side.
But it probably goes from there.
It probably goes from there somewhere.
Up here somewhere and then around.
My guess is that soffit hides the lines that go up and on, and that's the washer dryer. Just one line going up, that's odd. It's like the hot water isn't in function anymore.
Let's go outside where there's some light. So the verdict is there's nothing useful in the kitchen side, nothing we need immediately, so we're just going to continue to open up some stuff on the mudroom side because that's where all of the relevant plumbing and such is. So yeah, we're just going to go at it make a mess, destroy some shit. None of our plaster has its keys anymore. There's not a single key that I can see. Poor walls. So it didn't take very long, but we now think we understand what's going on with all the plumbing. It is fairly convoluted. It's clear that there are like retrofits on top of retrofits, which is not surprising for a house of this age. Also, there were some questionable decisions made along the way. Again, not that surprising, but it probably only took us 45 minutes and now we've got everything opened and much easier access for the plumbing visit tomorrow. So hopefully that goes quite quickly and then we can have some hot water and some showers. I will be so happy to have a shower. So I've had a surprising amount of comments and interest about the book that I've been reading in the last few videos, The Alice Network. Some of you have checked it out from your library or gone out and bought it, and I know at least one of you has your whole book club reading it, which so cool. Also, so surprising because I haven't even actually given it an actual review yet. I literally just found it in a free little library and thought it looked interesting. But since I did greatly enjoy the book and I did film a short little book review back in the summer, wasn't sure if I was ever gonna use it, but there's enough interest, I think I better whip it out. So here you go, quick little book review from the past. All right, friends, I just finished reading this book the other night and thought I'd give it a short little review because I thought, hey, if you like historical houses, maybe you also like other aspects of history, including historical fiction. So let's jump into it really quick. I realize this is not BookTube. I am not giving book reviews as a channel, so if you really cannot handle it, you can skip to the next chapter here. But otherwise, stick around for a couple minutes. It was a really good book and I think it was worth the read. So in lieu of trying to awkwardly summarize the story for you because it is long and convoluted and I've never been good at that, I'm just gonna read you the review from Goodreads because they did a good job. So, in an enthralling new historical novel, two women, a female spy recruited to the real-life Alice Network in France during World War I, and an unconventional American socialite searching for her cousin in 1947 are brought together in a mesmerizing story of courage and redemption. 1915. A year into the Great War, Eve Gardner burns to join the fight against the Germans and unexpectedly gets her chance when she's recruited to work as a spy. Sent into enemy-occupied France, she's trained by the mesmerizing Lily, codename Alice, the Queen of Spies, who manages a vast network of secret agents right under the enemy's nose. 30 years later, haunted by the betrayal that ultimately tore apart the Alice Network, Eve spends her days drunk and secluded in her crumbling London house, until a young American barges in, uttering a name Eve hasn't heard in decades, and launches them both on a mission to find the truth, no matter where it leads. So I quite enjoyed it. Like I said, I picked it up at a free little library, so I had zero expectations going into it of what it would be, and I thought the story was captivating and unique, and I really enjoyed that it was a story of wartime friendship rather than wartime romance, which I do find to be a bit of a tired trope at this point. It does draw a lot of comparisons between the two wars, which I quite enjoyed, although I will say, because there are two storylines, you follow Eve's storyline as a spy in 1915, and then you follow her modern day during World War II story with Charlie, and I definitely found myself much more captivated, like downright enthralled actually, by her 1950 storyline. Like, I could not put that down. And the other storyline, while it was still good, it was definitely, in my opinion, a little bit weaker. I was not as captivated by it. It wasn't enough to make me dislike the book, but I definitely found myself more drawn to the 1950 spy timeline, especially because you learn later in the book that this was all entirely based on real life women The author, Kate Quinn, has a whole section at the back of the book where she talks about the real life women that inspired the story, including a section that she calls, what is it? Voices of the Past, which is basically letters and trial records, so you can read about the real life women in their own voices and or from contemporary sources, which I thought was super fascinating and like really interesting to learn. I feel like you hear a lot more about spies in the Second World War and not nearly as much in the First War, so that was really interesting to learn about for sure. Fair warning though that it can be grim and dark at some points, so if you are looking for a lighthearted read and you don't want to touch on more serious topics, well, if you're looking for a lighthearted read, you probably shouldn't be choosing a historical fiction novel set during not one but two major world wars. So there is that. But I will say, if you love to hate a good villain, the villain in this one is absolutely bone-chillingly bad, evil, really well written in my opinion, so I really enjoyed hating him. That was kind of fun. So all in all, not a lighthearted read, has a wickedly evil villain and, you know, is a bit grim, deals with, you know, demons and ghosts from your past, but ultimately it's like a redeeming tale of like strength and courage, and you learn a lot about some badass women. So if that sounds like something that interests you, would definitely recommend checking out The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. Also, on a related note, to do some shameless self-promotion, if you're into spies in wartime, I do recommend checking out my History of Wartime Knitting. It's a 45-minute long quasi-documentary where I really delve into the fascinating history of wartime knitting throughout, from the Civil War through to World War II, basically, and has some fun knitting and espionage-related tidbits in there. So go check that out. All right, quick update because it has been a super busy morning. We had the plumber swing by and he was working with Phil, helping him get the hot water set up.
Stop!
So it looks like, fingers crossed, we're gonna have a hot shower tonight, which, oh, feels like such a luxury at this point. So the hot water should be run to the sink, should be run to the shower, and also I think we've gotten installed a hookup for the washer. So we're gonna actually move the washer from the upstairs bathroom down to the mudroom here so that we can start washing our own clothes, which is also going to be such a luxury. Very excited for that. That all went really well. Then also, while the plumber was here, the foundation guy swung by, and that too was generally pretty good news, which I'm thrilled to hear at this point. So we started off downstairs looking inside at the foundation. For the most part, he was actually surprised at what good of shape it was in. Everything's pretty straight, no massive cracks. It is quite interesting because we have an outer stone wall, and then at some point later, they came in and bricked up an inner wall out of regular bricks. I don't know if that was for fashion or for function. The foundation guy did say that there are some old houses in the area that have this feature and he's not sure why. He can't see what purpose it serves. It just, somebody decided it was the thing to do at some point in the past, and a bunch of houses did that. We had previously discovered that there was a pretty significant air gap between the two walls, at least in certain places around the house. There's like at least 6 inches between the outer wall and the inner wall, which we're not entirely sure what we want to do with that yet. If we want to like fill it with concrete or insulation, not sure, still thinking about that. So then we kept walking around the interior, showing him various places. He gave us some tips and pointers on some things to do here and there, and it was really interesting to hear his advice and expertise on the matter. Then once that was done, we went outside and did a tour of the outside perimeter of the house, just again, kind of going once over everything, especially focusing on this area here behind me, which is the front of the house, basically just off to the side of the front porch. There is one area that we had noticed the foundation is bulging out towards the outside of the house. We were concerned about that. He took a look at it and was like, If it was my house, I'm not concerned about it. I wouldn't do anything. He said I would take care of that window, get it out of there, follow the rot up as far as the rot goes and pull it out and replace it. That's probably worse for your house and its structural integrity than the foundation. He said honestly you could shore the foundation up a bit if you wanted to, but it's not something that happened overnight. It's been quite a while that it's been like this, so he wasn't particularly concerned. That's where we're standing. He did give us also some nice information on some French drains. I thought I was gonna have to call a separate person for the French drains, but he gave us enough pointers how he would do it. Between that and Phil's father doing landscaping, I think we're gonna maybe be pretty well set in that area. So that's what happened this morning. It was a busy morning, full of professionals, full of relatively good news. Things got done. Phil is currently out right now thrifting a couple sink hookups, and also he went to the plumbing store to get some hardware for the connection of the shower. So he's out doing that and he should be home shortly. Then we're gonna have lunch and then we're going to tackle the chainsaw and the trees and trying to get the trees down around the perimeter, because that was the first thing the foundation guy said. And one of the first things we noticed also, there are so many trees around our property and the majority of them are going right against the house, like right against the house. We've already found one massive root system in the basement.
Oh my God.
We did take care of that, at least from the inside. So now we're gonna go around the outside and chainsaw everything down and then poison the trees so they don't grow back, because that would kind of defeat the purpose. That's hopefully the goal for tonight. Yesterday, Phil went over to our neighbors and got a chainsaw from them. He's borrowing theirs. He got a quick lesson on how to use it. It was pretty adorable. The two men playing with their power tools. So we now have a chainsaw. Hopefully that's what we can do today. Just take care of all this greenery around the outside of the house, with the exception of a couple of the trees that are super close to power lines. We might have to call someone in for that. That remains to be seen. So lunch, shower, chainsaw. Hopefully if we're lucky we can take care of all three of those today. Really quick before I forget, I want to invite everybody to join me for the premiere of these videos. It's been a little tradition that I've started for the house renovation videos and that I plan to continue weekly as long as my schedule allows. So every Friday when the video becomes public, I sit down in front of my computer. Some of you also have been joining me and we've all been watching it together. There's like a running little chat on the side where people can comment and ask questions about the video, and it's just been a really fun experience. I've been having a lot of fun. I've gotten feedback from those of you who are joining me that you're really liking it. So if you're available when the video premieres, usually at this time on Fridays, please consider joining us. It's been a lot of fun. Okay, back to the action. These were not gonna go in the dumpster. They would have taken valuable real estate that we needed for more urgent things like basement sludge and old drum sets. So for the moment, we just kind of pulled all the brush off to the side and made a few piles next to the house. And that's when Tim, unable to resist the siren song of the chainsaw, came over to lend a helping hand. So we're gonna let Phil and Tim reattach the chain on the chainsaw while I answer a quick Patreon question about our windows. Because they're giant, they're beautiful, and you're gonna start to see them a lot more as we move around the outside of the house and cut down the trees. And Jean Sando here has a killer question about them. She asks about what we're planning to do with them, keep them, replace them, and then talks about, you know, how replacing them often means losing the charm of the house. You can read the whole comment here. So I figured let's stir up some shit. Because as I mentioned in last week's video, we will be keeping the original windows. For the most part, there are maybe a couple exceptions, but let's talk about why. Because beyond the fact that they're beautiful and original to the house, it's not just nostalgia behind the decision, it's also finances. There are so many windows in this house, and they're so big that they would cost a small fortune to replace, and that is money we would never recoup. Now, I know the window companies claim, or well, they used to claim, more on that in a second, that you'll make that money back in savings on the energy bill. But hold on, think about it for a sec. Who is selling you that line? The window companies, who obviously want you to buy their product. And in the vast majority of cases, it's absolutely not true. It's so untrue, in fact, that in 2012, I think, the FTC came down on 5 replacement window companies for false advertising and ordered them to stop making exaggerated and unsupported claims about the energy efficiency of their windows and how much money consumers could save on their heating and cooling bills by having them installed. If you want more detailed information about it, I will link a couple fantastic videos by Brent. He explains it far more eloquently than I could, but just in terms of bang for my buck, the money that I could spend on replacing my windows, it's gonna go infinitely further to insulate the attic, to seal up the sill plate and the rim joist, to work on making other parts of the house a bit more airtight, rather than dropping, what, maybe 40 grand on windows that are just gonna need to be changed again in 15 to 20 years. Also, don't even get me started on maintenance free. I do not believe that there's any aspect of a house that is maintenance free and that is just basically a decoy for needs to be trashed in a certain amount of time. That's a whole different topic. We can get into it later. Back to the windows. The plan is to keep the original windows and just work on them, maintain them, fix them, and they do need a lot of fixing. They are in really rough shape. Again, I talked about it a little bit last week. You can watch that video, and you can bet there's gonna be many more future videos about tackling these windows, but basically, the wood needs a lot of help, a lot of love and time. They're all gonna get scraped, repaired, reglazed, and I imagine I'm gonna be an expert on installing bronze weather stripping by the time they're all done. Also, while we have the windows out for repair, we're probably going to insulate the window cavities better, and storm windows are gonna be created or improved. Now, I know I have a lot of viewers in other countries, so if English is not your first language, storm windows are the removable windows that can get added in the winter and can be removed in the summer. Sometimes people switch them out for screen windows, and you can have them on the exterior or on the interior of our house. Now, ours has some original exterior storms, and we're probably going to be matching those for the ground level. And we'll also be making a bunch of interior storms as well, especially for the upper levels where, you know, changing out storm windows is a bit trickier. I do know that heavy curtains work really well to help block out the cold air. Trust me, I read all your comments about it, and I do fully agree there is a lot of value in some heavy curtains, but the problem with that is they also block out the light. And I love the light. After living in Copenhagen for 3 years, even more than ever, I love the light, especially in the coldest, darkest months of winter. I want to take advantage of the light being brought in by these giant windows. So, in lieu of heavy dark curtains, I'd like to get as many storms on here as possible. And I'd like to take you through the journey of fixing these old windows up as well, so that you can see that it's really not that bad, and maybe I'll be able to convert a couple of you to team original windows and team wavy glass. But enough talk. I think Phil's gotten the chainsaw up and running, so let's just get back to the action.
Yeah, it's gonna be easier to cut this one.
Oh yeah.
I had trouble to get the angle right so it falls to you.
Yeah.
It was tricky to get the right.
That one will fall. That one, we'll just have to chop up it a little bit.
I chopped
here.
this branch first, it's gonna go by itself.
Yeah, whatever you feel. Yeah, you're probably good enough right there. No sense going up higher, man. The other one worked that way.
It was super rewarding to see our house slowly being revealed as we worked away, and by the end of the day, you could really see the way that the trees had been suffocating the house, rubbing against it for years, and literally scraping the color off the siding. Then it was cleanup time, both outside and inside. Well, the trees were definitely not all cut down, but we were out of sunlight and out of energy, so we're gonna have to come back and tackle them another day. And we'll get a preview of that day in a second, but first, let's just take a second to revel in the success and progress of today. We chipped away at the garbage in the basement, and we learned that the vast majority of our kitchen soffits are taking up a ton of space for no good reason, which means that we can get rid of them and open the room up a bit. Not open concept, we're not tearing any walls down, just, you know, gaining a little bit more vertical space to work with. We also got a great start on taking down those exterior trees, and most importantly, we got the water hooked up. We can officially take showers. Yeah, about that. Technically, yes, the water was hooked up that day, but I forgot. I kind of made a mistake in my footage, and we were actually still missing a couple pieces to get the shower itself working. So please ignore this next little bit because we did not get a shower that day. It took one more day, but also I'm just too lazy to go back and re-record this whole segment. So please just save your warm, cozy, clean feelings for the end of next week's video. Plus, in a moment of serendipity, the power to that half of the house was turned on the same day, so we even got a bit of light in the bathroom for that shower. It was an amazing feeling. And the amazing feelings will continue in next week's episode as we make some fun and intriguing discoveries about our house's history. You'll get that sneak peek in a second, but really quick, a reminder that if you want to support the channel, I'm on Patreon, I'm on Ko-fi, and if you want current updates on the house, I'm on Instagram, Shannon Makes on all 3 platforms, and links in the description. But for now, enough talk, let's go see what adventures next week will bring. All right, moment of truth, does it fit? It's gotta. It is not just any lamp, it is an Art Deco lamp from the 1920s. It was such a weird experience. Ta-da! Nice. Out of here. Soffits for shits?
Soffit for shits. Look at this shoe brush.